Welcome to the first episode of Writers and Wonders, the podcast. My name is Petra, and I'm currently in Budapest. I'm a writer. Otherwise, I work in content marketing, but I'm a writer, and I strive to be a published author one day, which is, I guess, in part why I'm sitting here doing this podcast in a weird way. I'm also a mom. That's important. And we live here with my family. Yeah, I think that should be enough for like a quick intro, and then we can dive into any details necessary later on. So you're up.
Yeah, so I am Yurim or Yerim. Yerim is Korean, which I am, although I grew up in the US from when I was about 1 and then went on to university and grad school in the UK. And then I also worked and lived in Seoul and Paris before coming here to Oslo, Norway. My husband is Norwegian, which is how I ended up in this beautiful country of less than 6 million people. And I also am a mom. I am also a writer, also trying to be a published author, which I think is a nice way of putting things like that, because I might still be in that phase where I'm a little embarrassed to say I'm a writer, because I don't know when you're not published, how does that work with like your identity? And yeah, I guess we could also talk about how, Petra, you and I met as a way of
Sure.
introducing ourselves. I guess it's been almost a year, maybe less than a year, how we first got in touch. We had both signed
Yeah.
up for this beta reader matchup
Yeah.
through Bianca Maray's. She has this like platform that she sets people up every year. I think it runs maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah. Or maybe even monthly. No?
Oh, is it?
I don't know. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, I first heard about it through the podcast that she co-hosts. I always get the name wrong because I always remember like a variant of it, but it's
You
the,
always only remember the shit
the shit
part.
part. It's not shit, but it's like the shit that no one tells you about writing.
Yeah.
I think, is
I
that the
think
full
so.
name?
That's the one.
Yeah, so we had both signed up, and then we got matched in a group of, I believe it was 6 women.
Yeah.
And probably because we were in a group, I had said I was writing women's fiction. And I think
Yeah, me too.
also there was a sense of, how do you say, or there was the aspect of geography and time zone that
Yeah.
was put into it. And so I think everyone in our group was mostly somewhere within Europe, UK.
Yes.
I think there was one woman in South Africa.
Maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You were in Norway, of course. I'm in Hungary. There was someone from Portugal and then the UK as well. So yeah, we were more or less in the same time zone. Yeah.
And then I think from that, we sort of communicated one-on-one and continued to do that. And we reached a point where maybe we're trying to help each other in terms of like supporting each other in our writing journey. So we set up these one-on-one writing sessions. Do you remember? Where
Yeah.
we like in the beginning, I think it was like, do you want to try once doing this? And we dedicated like a couple of hours. And then it ended up we were really talking a lot during these writing sessions.
Lots of talking and not so
Yeah.
much of writing, but yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is fair, because, I don't know about you, but writing can be like, and maybe this is also part of the reason we started talking about doing a podcast. One of the sort of the purpose or the reason we wanted to do it for myself. Also, writing can be quite isolating or lonely, or, I mean, you're in this own world of that you're writing about sometimes, and you have like your characters in that story, but then you like get really caught up in it. And so sometimes I think it's nice to have a chance at building writing community where you can sort of also share with other people about that process.
Yes. And then you can also ask so many questions that you have along the way, because it is true that writing is really a solitary act, but I'm more or less fine with that part, actually.
Mm.
my problems come when I have questions about, okay, sometimes about how to actually write the story. So like, whether it's building the narrative or writing a dialogue in the proper way. And then we also always had so many questions about publishing itself and the book
Mm.
market. And so I think this is why we ended up talking so much in our writing sessions.
Yeah.
Because you just bump into these posts on social media, or you read the news regarding the publishing market every week or every day, and then sometimes I think it's a very hopeful image, other times it's a very gloomy picture that's kind of being painted in front of you. And so I guess just like any other writer, we all have the questions, the worries, whether we can make it, and which path should we take while trying,
Mm.
whether that's traditional publishing or self-publishing, or even within those paths, I think. So like, I don't know, like which agents to put on your list when you're querying, and just so many questions. And so to add to what you've been saying, we also want this podcast to just to resonate with other writers, I guess, because I think we are all in the same shoes, really. And I think we all just need a space to talk about these things and just to let out our frustration sometimes, and then also other times ask the questions that we want to, and maybe to get a piece of confirmation that we are doing well. Sometimes it doesn't seem like that, but we are doing well and we are doing the right thing.
Mhm.
So at least that's my hope.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, the teachers oftentimes would say there's no such thing as a stupid question, right?
Mm.
And I think that luckily you and I connected, and I think that we are able to ask each other like pretty much anything. And also, like you mentioned earlier, there is really a lot of information out there. At this point, like I am signed up for newsletters, like Stack stuff. I think even like some of the like query tracker websites, like where they send you each week like an update on which agents have changed their sort of like their status, etc. To be honest, I mean, like, there are some weeks where I just don't read any of those emails because there's so much. And like you said, sometimes it's pretty, like, not positive or it's not encouraging. Like, nobody is like, oh, please, like, send me, your query. There's a lot on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok. And we've talked about this before, like whether or not we still use Twitter/X or Blue, and the podcasts, of course, which now we're here and also contributing to that space. Yeah. So I think it's sometimes hard to be aware of everything and then also like pick out what is useful to you. Sometimes like filter out if you need to, sometimes stay updated. And of course, all of that comes with the creators of this content. I mean, everyone has their own opinion, right? So, or their own viewpoint or their own genre or their own style. So, yeah, I think that is also one of the reasons we wanted to do this, to just kind of be open with each other and like not feel like, I don't know about you, but I alluded to this earlier, I am actually an economist originally by trade. That's what I studied. I also worked in public and private sector. So when I talk about writing, that's really something I've always enjoyed doing. This like creative outlet that has always been really fun. And although I mentioned like being in sort of this isolating writing world in my own, like with my own characters and stuff, like I do have fun with it, right? But because I don't have that, MFA, or I don't have that sort of like resume credential, I have done stuff in writing like kind of on my own. Then you always wonder like, am I doing this right? Or like, is this like good enough? Will it be good enough? Yeah. So.
And this is why we also chose the title to be Writers and Wonders, just to
Mm.
tie back to to why are we sitting here is because sometimes it feels like all we do is wonder
Yeah.
about everything.
Yeah.
Life in general too, but especially when it comes to writing itself and how we are trying to enter the publishing world, how long it is going to be, how long it's going to take, whether we are going to make it ever, because you very often read about authors who, I don't know, they wrote 10 books and then the next one was the hit for them, and so many before that got shelved even, maybe meaning that, it wasn't even published. Same with when, writers query. Sometimes they query a novel and nobody wants it, and then they shelve it, and maybe it's going to be the second or the third book that's going to get them agented. Yeah, so there are so many things that we are wondering about, and this is why we chose the title to be Writers and Wonders. And also there's that assumption behind it, of course, that we think other writers do the same. And so we are hoping that we are going to find a community here around the podcast,
Mhm.
and that we are going to, I don't know, wonder together.
Yeah,
Moving
and
on.
I mean, you remember we had, like, a list, a whole bunch of different ideas for
Mhm.
titles, and, of course, there were, like, the practical aspects where, many were already taken.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, yes, there are lots of people probably thinking the same, but also, like, I liked how, Wonders, like, it feels very kind of like there's something, like, hopeful about it. There's, like, an aspect of, like, having dreams and, like, aspirations and, like, there's future possibilities, something which is maybe inspirational. And, I get in these moods where I feel like, oh, like, even as an adult, I'm still allowed to have dreams, kind of sometimes lose them along the way, or everything becomes very practical in life. There are phases where, like, you kind of have to be practical and get things done, like, and then you have, like, you get married, you have children, and you're like, I am responsible for raising other people. So that is something. But I like the idea that at least between us, among others, be interested in the same, like, you're allowed to still have dreams.
yeah,
That was also another reason that I liked what we went with in the end, the Writers and Wonders podcast.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like we're in this era. Maybe I'm sure it happened before too, but I can only speak about what I'm experiencing right now. But I feel like we're in this era where more and more adults, people in their 30s, 40s, and above, are realizing that they actually need a creative outlet. Maybe they've always known that they are a creative person, regardless of their regular profession, or maybe they are new to figuring that out. But I just see so many people in my life and just, in the world, mostly meaning like on social media and on the internet, that people are realizing that they need to write a book, or they want to launch a podcast, or they want to be involved in some kind of artistic experience. And oftentimes it's just very much the opposite of what they've been doing. Like maybe your example is something similar to that, meaning that you are an economist, but you want to write a book, and you want a writing career, right? And just the other day, I connected with another writer who is a lawyer, but has been, she has been dreaming about writing since she was a teenager, I guess, and now she's doing it again. She also has kids, I think, and so all those things happened for her as well in her life. But maybe something is like, I don't know, like happening in the world that makes me see these examples, be wanting to change and be part of a change, and maybe wanting to do something that is not what you were told to do, in a way. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to get a job, you have to, and those are all, I guess, normal things. Like, you do need an income, you need to pay the bills, and there's a point to that as well, of course. But maybe people are realizing that there's more to that, and it's worth figuring out how you can do your life in a way where, yes, you can still pay the bills because you have to, but you can create a space for whatever it is that you're striving for, hoping for, and that often is related to something creative. This is what I see.
Mm.
And maybe this is why I also have this impression that everybody is writing a book, everybody's doing a podcast, and it's not just celebrities, but regular people, not famous people.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you were saying about, you know, doing what you've kind of always been told to do. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but if we go into like some kind of childhood psychology or upbringing,
Hmm.
I think for example, for myself, I grew up in the US from a young age with like immigrant parents who obviously gave up a lot for them to have a different lifestyle. I mean, my parents went to the US because my father was a PhD student. So I think they had kind of intended to go back to Korea after he finished his studies, but for various reasons they ended up staying. And then I don't know, you're kind of growing up in an environment where people are working really hard and telling you need to work hard, and probably ABC type jobs are going to give you that steady, sort of success. And then you think, yeah, that's important. And it is. But sometimes I do wonder, like, if I had maybe had a little more room to explore, like, what did I really like doing most or enjoy doing, like, in my own sort of way, like finding my way. I wonder, would I have ended up doing the same thing now? I'm not sure. Like, for sure, I really kind of always enjoyed writing, the creative side of it. And I always, even from like a young age, I remember like in first grade or something, I won a poetry contest. Later in life along the way, you have like little signs of like, that might have pointed you in that direction, but I just never exactly, kind of had that liberty to explore, maybe. And also, that's not easy. Like when you're very young, like not everybody knows, like when they're like, I don't know, what age. And then later when you have to start deciding, like, what are you going to study and what's the type of job you're going to get and where are you going to be. But yeah, for sure. I think like if I had listened to some of those inner voices or like, looked at those signs, like, could I have taken a different path? I don't know. But now I'm here and I have my experiences and they have brought me to sort of a time and place where I can explore this and where I'm trying. So for sure, like there is this like element of wanting to expand on that creative avenue outlet, like when I still have the chance. Now, like I'm starting to feel these days like I'm only getting older, right? So like,
I think
like
everybody.
yeah, and I think like what you said, like a lot of people, of course, COVID had like a big influence. People were like really, left to think for themselves, right? We were in the US at the time. I remember like for like 7 months, everybody was at home. No one went anywhere. I was going crazy. I think I had a 2-year-old at the time, and I was like, I don't know, making food 7 times a day, trying to get like someone to nap. The playgrounds were closed, the parks were closed. Like it was like chaos. That was not the time where I started writing because I just didn't have the energy or the time. But that was like where I think for myself, like really felt like that. I just want to like do something that I really want to do. And I've talked about this for such a long time. Whether I told people about it or not is something I always sort of thought about. And then, yeah, and then finally, like, we broke out of that, and then things ended up on a path that brought me here with you on this podcast.
Yeah, and also there's that magic of timelines in our lives. Really, if you think about it, that like we said, that oh, maybe if we were born in a, I don't know, different era or a different time, maybe now we would be, I don't know, let's say published authors already. If you wouldn't have become an economist, and I wouldn't have gone into PR and marketing and everything I've been doing so far. But on the other hand, those things probably and surely had to happen to bring us here today. Even when I'm thinking in terms of my own book that I'm writing or editing right now, and we can then talk about that as well, like our specific projects and where we are with those. A lot of what happened in my life, and also specifically my working life, informed so many things in my book, and the scenes that I created, the characters that I have there. And I don't mean like I directly grabbed people from my own life and put them in my book, but the encounters I had and the stories that I somehow got myself into at work, those really informed and then inspired many things in my book. And so I'm thinking that if those, never happened, then maybe well, not maybe, I'm sure that I wouldn't have the book that I have right now, or the story. It's not like a proper book yet because it's not published, of course. But yeah, so there's that's the magic of timeline in life, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they say you write what you know.
Yeah.
So, for sure, I mean, I also do the same. Like, you draw from the experiences you have. And of course, it's also fictionalized. So sometimes I think, like, I had this experience, but what if this had happened instead? Or, like, I really wish this would have happened, or I can't
Yeah.
believe this happened, that sort of a thing. So, for sure, I mean, it's nice to have these different experiences to be able to, expand into words and into a world, a separate kind of entity of how to put all those experiences together. Yeah. So, do you want to talk a little bit about where you are on in terms of your
Yeah.
writing journey?
Yeah,
Then
sure.
I can do the same.
So what I have right now is my first book, my first novel, and I tried querying that, I think, a little bit over a year ago. I think that the 1 year anniversary of me trying to query that was like last fall, like September, October. Nobody wanted it. And then I decided that if nobody is going to say yes to it and to me, then I'm going to try the beta reader thing where we met then, because I just wanted beta readers. Before that, I had only, I just had one editor that I found on Readsy to give me like, it was a developmental editing, and she was the first and up until that point the only person who read my story, and she gave me really good feedback, and and then I made a significant edit on the story, but nevertheless the querying wasn't successful. And so I tried this beta readers thing. I think around that time I started investing more energy and time, of course, into learning more about story structures and character building. And because up until that point, I think it was more of a let's swing it kind of thing, or more like I wrote what felt right, which is, I think, also part of the process. And I don't know if everybody goes through that, but for me, I just arrived to that point where I felt that it wasn't enough, that I actually need to learn more about the craft. And so I did exactly that, I think. So I found all these people on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and there are just so many good experts out there and free resources, actually, that you can tap into. And I think I've spent almost, well, the majority of last year doing that. And now I printed out the almost final version of the manuscript. And I've been doing line editing and copy editing. And just yesterday, I was thinking that now I've been doing that for like 5 weeks, and I wasn't expecting it to be this long, actually. But as I was doing this part of the editing, I was also putting research into how other people do it. And I just collected these bits of wisdom and like actual phrases and words that you should look for in your manuscript, because now I know that there are phrases that everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but many writers use just too many times when
Mm,
they're writing. It's either like they use it too many times or they use it in a way that's not correct. So it's more
mm,
like a grammar issue, and it shows the difference in how we write and how we speak. So like
mm.
when we speak, it's okay if you say like or as if, but when you're reading fiction, then you should know the correct form. And anyway,
Oh my
so I have
goodness.
like,
I've used as if and like quite often, so
yeah, I mean, I
yeah.
think you're either like a like person or an as if person as a writer. And then
Yeah.
once you get to copy and line editing, you will learn that you have to iron out everything. And
Which one are you? Are you an as if or a like?
I would say that that part is still on my list. So I think I'm
Mm.
going to do that either today or tomorrow. But I think I'm leaning towards more like.
Oh, yeah. I
And
think I'm an as if.
yeah, but now I've learned the difference. So now I'm clear about when you should use like and when you should use as if.
Mhm,
So I have this list of phrases and words, and it's
mhm,
like over 50. And it's very surprising when you know, like do like a control F in your document to look for the mentions of a certain word or phrase, and it gives you like 500 um, results of it, and that takes like a day or 2 full days to sort out, because you go over every individual mention of the word and then you read the sentence, and then sometimes it's an easier one, like just a quick swap. Other times you want then change the word and then realize that okay, that's going to mess up the whole sentence, so you rewrite the whole sentence. So all in all, I really wasn't expecting this phase to be this long. But anyway, I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now. I think I
mm,
have like 2 phrases left to check. And in parallel to this, I was also drafting a new query letter. I have different versions now because I want to use a new one. And I'm also like collecting names of agents as well. And the plan is to finish editing this week, and I will also finalize my query package next week and want to also start reaching out to agents next week. And then I think it will be querying for the whole of February and then possibly March and April, I don't know.
mm,
So that is where I am. But otherwise, I've been working on this novel for I think I started writing it in 2018.
mm,
It was, of course, an on and off journey because of just, you know, how life happens. And you have work, and then also my daughter was born, and all these regular episodes. But yeah, this is where I'm at right now, and I'm actually very enthusiastic about this phase right now, and I just can't wait to finish editing, and dive into the querying again,
mm.
which is a nice surprise, I guess, because obviously the last time I was doing that, at the end of it, I wasn't that happy. And then, yeah, I just had to realize that it was for a reason. And now looking back, I know. And again, this is, you know, what we discussed about timelines and that you need to go through things to arrive to a certain point in your life. I had to realize that I just had to learn so many things and rewrite the story in a certain way to actually work. Or at least I think it works now. And we'll see what everyone else is going to think. But yeah, so this is where I'm at now. What about you?
Yeah. Yes. So, well, when we had met, I was writing and I guess editing. Actually, that's not true. I think I had already sent out my first manuscript to some agents. It was not that many. I can't remember. It was like, I mean, it was like 10, maybe give or take a little. I did have like, some sort of people, or I had shared at least maybe some chapters, or actually, I was very lucky that I had shared my first manuscript with a friend who was part of a book club in New York, and she really put it out there for me with her book club, and they were so nice and willing to read it and then give me feedback on it. But I sort of really appreciated that experience because it was people that I didn't, apart from my friend, people that I didn't know who were giving me feedback. So I had that. I had also no, positive feedback or from the agents that I queried. And then I think I reached this point where I was like, okay, I have editing to do, and I know that I have to change this up somehow, but I didn't exactly feel like I knew how. And I was a little tired of my character and her world because I was like, okay, I need to, fix things, but felt a little like I'm not very inspired right now. And I had already known that this manuscript would be related to at least one more story, and if not two, the first one being the sister to the main character in the second. So then I was like, you know what? I don't know if you call it for creativity's sake, or like we mentioned, there are authors out there who maybe wrote 10 books before they got one agented and before they got published. So I was like, I'm really feeling like I want to explore the story of the sister. And also I thought maybe that would help me figure out a better way to revise the story of the first manuscript. So last summer, I started to write my second manuscript, and I am still doing that right now. Obviously, along the way, I decided I needed to change up the whole thing, which is great because you're oh, this is exciting. This is, I think, more interesting. But on the other hand, I've just spent several months writing this first draft. Now I'm changing it. So you're like, oh, great. Because I have all the time in the world,
Yeah,
I
sure.
know none of us do. So the main change in that being that I went from a single to a dual POV story, which I've
That's a
never done
shift.
before. Yeah, which I've never done before. And frankly, let's be honest, when I first started sort of really writing the stories a few years ago, what do I know about one POV, dual POV? Nothing. Do I know that much more now? I mean, I'm trying. Like you, I'm also doing a lot of research online and reading also more stories that are in multiple POV, if not only dual. So yeah, I mean, I like this story a lot right now. I would really like to finish it. But like you said, it's the challenge of making the time work for the story to come out in the best way. And sometimes I think I go on these kicks where I'm really able to add chapters and chapters. And then other times I'm stuck on one sentence for a whole day. And that's really not necessary. But sometimes I feel whatever, maybe it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm at that point right now. I would really like to finish this second manuscript this spring and then have it available for hopefully sharing with other people to read, and getting feedback. And then, yeah, I mean, getting back into these querying trenches, as they call it. So I think, yeah, but I think there is something about you were saying, you are actually enjoying this sort of editing process right now.
Mhm.
Maybe that has something to do with having it printed out and really feeling like you're getting to that finish line. And I totally get that. I also feel right now I really like being in this world of the second manuscript. It's there's so much room for possibility and stuff that I could maybe add or take away to try to make it more interesting or exciting. So yeah, I think that is a good place right now. But of course, I would love to finish it as well. But I think that's, there are phases to that, so we'll see how we go, but it's nice to, be able to sort of talk about it along the way as well. I know that we often, we are meeting to write, and now, of course, to do this and doing it all virtually. Oh, we should also mention we've never met in person before.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah. Okay, so everyone listening or watching us, I don't know what's going to happen. We've never met before, just virtually. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a few kilometers between us. Not
Yeah,
few, lot actually.
for
But at
sure.
least we are in the same time zone, so that's helpful.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's kind of the great thing, like how we were connected, we got connected, we have stayed and like we're building on this connection and now hopefully we're reaching out to more out there and I think it's nice. I mean, we can sit here with our laptops, our smartphones and whatever, but there was like a time when you didn't have that, right? Gosh, I sound really old when I say things like that. But
Oh,
you
it's
know,
fine.
I didn't have Facebook until I was like, we had like AOL Messenger. That was like a big turning point. MSN.
Yeah. Yeah. But this just reminds me of like the other day I was thinking about like Hemingway and other writers before us. I specifically mentioned Hemingway because he is in my book actually. So like Hemingway and other writers who are now we think of as famous and legendary and their work as like I don't know life changing or whatever. They never had internet or social media and that kind of digital world around us that we have now, which sure maybe made things, I guess, more difficult for them in a way, but maybe also easier in so many other ways. And more specifically, I was thinking about as I was like doing my best to write an other version of my query letter. And was Hemingway thinking about all this stuff at all? The system was so different back then when it
Yeah.
came to writing and publishing. Sure, he had mentors and like he was also involved in the world of journalism, and so there were the connections and maybe people he could reach out to. But sometimes I have this feeling that we struggle more in this digital world trying to perfect our writing and our query package, which is essentially like a PR package that we want to, again, perfect to a point where an agent is going to say yes.
Mm.
And then we can step into the big game. I know writers of the past experience rejections as well, because that's just part of the writer life. But I'm sure like Hemingway wasn't really spiraling as much as I these days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, we are like very well connected. At the same time, sometimes you can be like over connected. I think for myself, like all of the social media and the easy access to online resources, like definitely is like sometimes a distraction. Not even sometimes, like there are definitely way too many minutes of the day where I am scrolling through things. Your algorithm like kind of like figures it all out and can also trick you into spending a lot of time looking at stuff. And yeah, maybe like at the end of the day, if I used that time writing, right, I would advance maybe a little more. On the other hand, like I am very grateful that I can just like Google like, how to write blah blah blah,
Mm-hmm.
or even just like thesaurus.
Mm, sure.
Oh, it's like a tough call. I think if I had more discipline, self-discipline for some of these things, I would like be able to handle it. But yeah, it is so much information that like it is like a little overloading sometimes. I don't know, but maybe this is like kind of how we wanted to use this podcast to help each other sort of filter through some of that. And by asking our questions to each other, maybe other people can hear and benefit from that. Or maybe they can like tell us some things. I mean, sometimes like I love like to, find out like a new resource. I mean, sometimes we're sending each other like reels, right?
Mm-hmm.
About like things that we find, or even sometimes if it's just like something funny, right? Like
Yeah,
sometimes you just like need like stuff to make you laugh and like
sure.
then like and also just to like remember that like we're all human, that we're all, we're on different paths and we have different backgrounds and whatever. But yeah, ultimately, like we're all trying to do something similar, maybe in a different way. I don't know, Petra, maybe this is like a good point to sort of like close out the first episode?
Sure. So, to anyone listening or watching us right now, which sounds so weird to say, but
Maybe
it is what
your
it is.
partner, my husband, huh?
Yeah, sure.
Shout out.
Hi, family and friends. Okay, so I guess what everyone can be expecting from this podcast is just two writers wondering about writing and publishing. And that means us sharing our experiences and where we are at in our publishing journeys, and also discussing whatever is happening in the book market and what interests us, because I definitely want to bring in some bits of news that I stumble upon every week about publishers or trends, and people I follow, like publicists and agents and editors, very often share very educational things, and I think we can also learn from those as well. So if anyone is also interested in like bits of news, I think they should keep listening to us, and then also subscribe to all the social channels that we are going to have.
Yeah, and probably along the way, we'll talk about random things because that
Yeah,
always happens. Like the fact that
yeah.
I thought this cup of coffee would last me the entire podcast. And I think it took like 10 minutes. Saved my coffee, like the special Christmas flavor,
Mm-hmm.
Starbucks toffee nut latte. Why can't they make it
Nice.
all year round? I don't know. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mine is long gone as well. So
Yeah. But
anyway,
yeah.
then we'll see everyone in the next episode.